Today's idea comes from Courageous, who asked us to rank our 5 favorite lightsaber duels, and me and Tom thought that was a nice simple one to ease us back into regular updates, and is definitely not Courageous trying to spark a feud between 2 good friends. We're on to you, buddy! There's so many great lightsaber duels to choose from, but if we could pick only 5 and the others would be wiped from the record forever, which ones would we personally spare? By the way, we're not just judging on how cool it looks or the flashy choreography, but also factoring in the narrative weight of the duel and what it tells us about the characters. Because as humans and not cats who like shiny objects dangled in front of our faces... what was I saying? Ah, right. That stuff matters just as much, if not more so, than the spins and twirls. So Tom, let's just dive straight on in, and at number 5, we'd place the final duel, for now, please keep him dead, Filoni, between Obi-Wan and Maul. In my opinion, a teeny bit overrated by Filoni fanboys, but still a spectacular duel if you're paying attention to the dynamics at play. On the surface, this fight draws its inspiration from those old-school samurai movies in which the duels are more about the reading of the opponent, with the actual exchange over in a matter of seconds.
Sounds like my wife.
Which is actually a fairly realistic representation of a duel, since in reality, sword fights do tend to be decided after 2 or 3 exchanges. But it's when you really look at the stances and beats that you see the brilliance. You've probably heard Sam Witwer's explanation or seen other YouTubers break it down like they were the first to realize the glaring obviousness, so I won't bore you with a meticulously long-winded breakdown, but ultimately, the whole duel is Obi-Wan using stances to bait Maul into trying the same hilt bash he used on Qui-Gon, which is in turn a metaphor for Obi-Wan having moved on spiritually while Maul languishes in the past. It's a sublime bit of storytelling through character actions, and the only reason I don't put it at the top is the pure fanservice-y nature of it. Maul coming back by itself was fanservice I really didn't think we needed, but thankfully Sam made it worth it. But I always felt Maul, post-Night Sister Voodoo, was always at his worst when the writers made him interact with Kenobi. He goes from mildly deranged, but still highly dangerous Sith/crime lord hybrid, providing an interesting dive into the seedier side of the galaxy far, far away, to a petulant child throwing a tantrum at the kid who pushed him over once. And I know, a lot of that is intentional because of Maul's mental state and fixation on Obi-Wan, but in my opinion, I think it's handled poorly at best. Also, I hate how it's yet another example of how easy it seems to be to find Kenobi. Dude, you know you're supposed to be hiding, right? Obi-Wan's exile is supposed to be one of total isolation and internal reflection. I hate when he gets dragged into events of the wider universe. In my opinion, it undermines and cheapens the deep sacrifice he was making of hiding so far out in the sticks of the galaxy that he was beyond anyone's capacity to trace, and letting the galaxy as a whole suffer greatly to ensure its salvation down the line. And this duel contributes to that cheapening stain, which is why I can't place it any higher. Come at me, Filoni fanboys, my lightsaber's already drawn. Moving on to number 4, and I'm placing my guilty pleasure pick, and that's The Return.
Of the Jedi?
No, my friend, just Return. Type it into YouTube and you'll see.
Bring it in!
It really does say a lot about where Disney puts priority that I can tell you more about this minor character's values and personality from his conduct in a lightsaber duel in this 6-minute promotional trailer for a video game than I can about Rey with the entire sequel trilogy behind her. It's a pretty big moment in the Star Wars universe too, because it marks the first time Jedi and true Sith cross blades with one another after the Great Hyperspace War. And unlike the complacent order of the prequels, these Jedi actually seem a little more ready for it. Oi, Yoda! Mace, and the rest of you prequel dandies. These guys are showing you up.
Sort it out, chaps.
Anyway, jokes aside, I always thought it a bummer that we never got to see Sindralig truly cut loose in the movies or novels. Battlemaster is such a cool title, and of course it makes you want to know what warrants such distinction. This is what warrants such distinction, and is what happens when you let a Battlemaster off the leash. What I love about this duel is in the space of around 3 minutes, you get to see what Darach is all about. He's stoic, brave, determined, protective, selfless, with serious glowstick skills and an incredibly creative approach, which makes a nice change from the typical spectacles of Force users just trying to bulldoze each other. Leveraging the Force and every unique lightsaber form in his arsenal in awesomely unique, unorthodox ways that allows him to keep 2 powerful Sith Lords at bay. And even then, it's arguable he only really loses because fighting 2 Sith Lords is more tiring than fighting 1. And all of this from a throwaway character. Pay attention, please, Mr. Mouse. Too bad the actual game never reached the highs of these damn trailers, eh? Moving on. At number 3, my choice would be... Hey, that rhymed Tom. The Duel of the Fates. I have looked at this duel through 3 sets of eyes in my life. As a kid, I just thought it was the most awesomest thing ever!
Jesus.
You want to see it again?
Can we?
As a pretentious teenager learning HEMA, I thought it was an overly choreographed dance with little substance, but then as an adult, I've come to appreciate it as perhaps the most important lightsaber duel of all time in both canons from a grand narrative standpoint. The technical sophistication of the choreography, the environment, and the music, by the Force, the music, are all at peak epic here. And I love the small glimpse we get of Maul's potential as a legitimately worthy successor to Palpatine, before he becomes a mentally broken shadow of his former self.
When I cut you in half, I should have aimed for your neck instead.
His intelligence and cunning is on full display as he leads both master and apprentice by the nose. And once he clocks their numbers, figures out the best way to neutralize Qui-Gon is to bring him into a tight, confined space. It really sells us on how deadly the Sith have become after 1,000 years of exile and the complacency the Jedi Order has fallen into. Remember, Qui-Gon is one of the Jedi's best, and supposedly a lightsaber prodigy, and Maul systematically dismantles him like it's sport. When it comes to dueling, this version of Maul certainly doesn't do things by halves. Yet. But this epic spectacle is not what puts me on the edge of my seat when I watch this fight now. It's the stakes. Sure, there's no personal animosity between Maul, Obi-Wan, and Qui-Gon, and to this day that does bug me a little. But this duel literally determined the fate of the galaxy. And the brilliance of it? You're initially led to believe the good guys won, when in reality, it's their biggest L of the bunch. Anakin's fall starts here. Qui-Gon was the only Jedi with the correct outlook and unique mindset capable of training Anakin into the chosen one he's meant to be. And with his death comes the inevitable fall of the Jedi. Every time I watch it, I find myself hoping beyond hope Obi-Wan makes it past that last gate.
Please! God damn it!
And every time, my heart sinks when he doesn't. Anyway, at number 2, we've placed the Battle of Heroes. Sure, it goes on just a teensy bit too long, and yeah, it's a little cheesy here and there, but this is still one of the most epic and emotional duels ever put to film. Period. Our heroes aren't fighting for a victory here. They've already lost. The only question is, can they take the devil down with them? The symbolism of the environments are not lost on me either. Yoda must fight in and against the very place his order spent over 1,000 years safeguarding, and watch it, quite literally, come crashing down around him while Sidious hides behind the power he's amassed. And Anakin must now fight in the hell of his own making. That will now be unleashed on the galaxy thanks to his choices. George never was one for subtlety. Everything from the music to the brief moments of pause where neither says anything, yet you can read their feelings plain as day, all the way to those little instances where you can observe Obi-Wan and Anakin know each other so well they can basically predict what the other is going to do next. Really helps sell the tragedy that brought this confrontation between brothers about. But what really sells this for me as one of the all-time greats and puts it above Duel of Fates, hey, that rhymes, Tom, is the personal nature of Anakin and Obi-Wan's segment, which comes to a head in the climax. Nope, not the silly high ground and underestimating power shtick, because look, I'm not a prequel hater, but to me that stuff was always lame. But the moment just after. The prequels are known for their ropey dialogue and wooden acting.
Maybe we should start calling your friend Padme, because he loves Anakin Skywalker. Danger, danger. My name is Anakin. My shitty acting is ruining Saga.
But this moment right here, Obi-Wan's pain, Anakin's raw, blinding hatred. Both Ewan and Hayden brought their A game, with Ewan as a particular standout powering through his naff and cheesy lines and somehow making it work. I also liked how Yoda and Sidious's portion was set up as basically a coin flip, but yet at the same time a totally futile effort on Yoda's part. Neither is dominating, but Yoda seems to have a minor edge and is putting Sidious on the back foot. He disarms Sidious off screen, he kind of wins the lightning tug of war. But because of Sidious's grand orchestrations, Yoda had really walked into a fight that was lost from the start. Because the Sith Lord knew all he needed to do was stall and run down the clock till reinforcements arrived. Which shows us the real reason Palpatine is so damn dangerous. No Palpy fanboys.
It's not because he's invincible and all-powerful.
He's actually profoundly overrated as a fighter.
It's because he sets up the game board beforehand to always be in his favor. The whole tussle between Yoda and Sidious isn't a question of if Yoda can win, it's a question of whether or not Yoda can admit to himself that the game is rigged, and he'll lose even if he does manage to kill Sidious. This duel leaves a bitter taste when all is said and done, but it's that bitter taste that paves the way for the hope that is to come. Hey, that rhymed, Tom. You let an awful lot of these slip through on this script, buddy. Anyway, we've made it to the top spot, and of course it's Rey versus Kylo from The Rise of Skywalker. I mean, just look at these stunning vistas. Look at this immense display of skill and finesse. It's utterly breathtaking visual storytelling. And yes, I am of course kidding, and yes, I'm going to be a boring old man, because the best lightsaber duel is Luke versus Vader from The Empire Strikes Back, especially when paired alongside their rematch in Return of the Jedi. We are no longer in the territory of opinions, this is fact. Anyone who disagrees is an enemy of the Empire and shall be dealt with accordingly. Look, guys, when I got to this point in the script, I realized I was going to need to give these two duels their own dedicated video in order to do them justice and explain why they are the best in the series. Sorry, I know it's like a repeat of the Westeros the Army video, but I promise at least this time it will be the immediate follow-up. But to sum it up quickly, yeah, the swordplay isn't as fancy-schmancy or flamboyant as what you get in the prequels and other media, but that was never the purpose of these duels. These are fights designed to drive story and character development, and in that regard, these two duels on their own are damn near perfect. We'll go into more detail in the follow-up video, but for now, we'll just take a brief look at the showdown on Bespin.
I gotta tell you, it was perfect.
Atmosphere, you drown in it. Bespin's closed, dark corridors is a claustrophobic hell as the halls close in on our hero. Ironically, the rooms open up more and more spatially as the duel progresses, but Luke's room to run shrinks. Just perfect. Choreography-wise, not as fancy as some of the twirly-whirlies in the prequels, but it's good enough. Not to mention, it's representative of the characters. Vader's got nothing to prove in this situation. He doesn't need to be fancy-schmancy. And Luke is still learning. He needs to keep it simple, stupid. This isn't so much a duel as it is a test. Vader doesn't want to kill Luke, he wants to capture and break him. Luke may have been underestimated, but there's still a gulf of skill between our hero and the villain, and Vader makes sure to drag him through his paces. Luke gets in just enough shots that you think he may take it with a bit of underdog luck, but the second he does something even remotely meaningful and Vader decides it's curtains, he goes after Luke like the poor farm boy stole the Death Star plans. And in terms of narrative importance, only the Battle of the Heroes and Duel of Fates might be on par with that infamous moment at this duel's climax. Anyway, enough for now. I realize I'm rambling and just stating the obvious. We'll go into major depth in the follow-up videos. What's your top 5 lightsaber duels and why? Be sure to let us know in the comments.